Hi guys, today I'm going to discuss to you the Teacher's Guide to Special Education. In this chapter, we'll discuss the main laws affecting special education and how they apply to you as a general education teacher. So special education and the laws that affect it. Public Law 94-142, also known as Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975, provides guidance to states, allowing students with disabilities to access public education and providing financial assistance to states as supplemental funding for special education and related services. Public Law 94-142 guaranteed a free appropriate public education to each child with disability. The outcome of Public Law 94-142, now referred to as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is the main law governing the education of students eligible for special education and related services. IDEA has 8 main principles, most notably that students who qualify for special education services are to receive a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. Special education law as it currently stands embodies 8 core principles: child find or zero reject, non-discriminatory evaluation, individualized education program or IEP, free appropriate public education FAPE, least restrictive environment or LRE, related services, parent participation. Child find or zero reject. School districts are required by law to seek out and identify every eligible student with a disability living within their jurisdiction. Once identified, with parental permission, all students identified as having disability and requiring special education are to receive an education based on their individual needs. Non-discriminatory evaluation. Before students with disabilities are eligible for special education services, they must receive a non-discriminatory evaluation, which is usually conducted by the school district. The evaluation must conform to the following guidelines. Tests must be administered in the student's native language. Tests must be appropriate for the student's age and suspected disability. More than one test must be used in determining the disability and need for services. Knowledgeable and appropriately trained individuals must administer the test. All areas of suspected disability must be assessed. All decisions about eligibility for special education and related services must be made by a team, not a single individual. To be eligible for special education and related services, students must meet specific criteria. Individualized Education Program or IEP. The IEP is one of the most important educational documents for students with disability. All students eligible for special education and related services received an Individualized Education Program or IEP. It is also viewed as a contract between the district and the student's parents. Free Appropriate Public Education or FAPE. FAPE is the heart of special education. It means that the public education entity is responsible for educating students within its boundary. Least Restrictive Environment or LRE is not only a special term but also a legal principle. It determines where a student with disability is to receive education services. LRE means that to the maximum extent appropriate, school district must educate students with disabilities in the regular classroom with appropriate aids and supports along with their non-disabled peers in the school. Related services. IDEA defines related services as those that are required to assist a child with disability to benefit from special education. They include but are not limited to the following components: transportation, speech pathology, audiology, physical therapy, occupational therapy, therapeutic recreation, social work, medical services, counseling, and recreational services. Parent participation. Before a student receives special education and related services, the parents or guardians must sign on. Parents have the right to participate in meetings related to the evaluation, identification, and educational placement of their child. Confidentiality. As a general education teacher, you will hear a lot of personal information about students, especially those with disabilities. Needless to say, confidentiality is very important. You should discuss information about a specific student only with others who need to know. Special education programs are designed for those students who are mentally, physically, socially, and/or emotionally delayed. These aspects of delay, broadly categorized as a developmental delay, signify an aspect of the child's overall development: physical, cognitive, scholastic skills, which place them behind their peers. So who receives special education services? IDEA covers children from the age of 3 through high school. Children younger than the age of 3 can receive services through IDEA's Early Intervention Services. To qualify, children must fall under one of the 13 disabilities identified by IDEA. First is autism, deafness, emotional disturbance, visual impairment including blindness, speech or language impairment, orthopedic impairments, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, like for example cerebral palsy and epilepsy. Next, multiple disabilities. Under this is deaf-blind. And lastly, traumatic brain injury. What is the purpose and goal of special education? The purpose of special education is no longer just to give these students access to education, but rather to teach the skills they need so they can be successful in the general education setting or develop as much independence as possible for adult life. Once students are receiving special education services, the goal is to enable them to use their potential to benefit from education and to build their skills to the point that the services are no longer required. How much should a student benefit from special education? Schools are obligated to offer services that provide students with some educational benefit. Some courts refine the some educational benefit standards to require that students achieve meaningful benefit or make meaningful progress in the areas where their disabilities affect their education. Access to the general education classroom and curriculum. It is important that students with disabilities have access to the general education curriculum because all students are held to equal standards. All students, regardless of their gender, race, or disability, should be treated equally. Who are the professionals in special education? First, general education teachers. The general education teacher is the person on the team knowledgeable about curricular expectations and methods for differentiating, so students with disabilities can make progress. They are often the first person to notice a student has a disability and can compare the students to others of the same chronological age and grade. Special education teachers. Special education teachers participate in meetings to help determine whether a student is eligible for services, and they are the professionals who are responsible for the facilitation and management of students' IEPs. Some special education teachers spend time in the general education classroom, assisting the general education teacher and eligible students. School administrators often provide indirect services for students with disabilities by ensuring proper implementation of policies, procedures, and financial responsibilities. All are important in working behind the scenes to make sure others can provide services. School psychologists are licensed to administer assessments to help determine a student's eligibility for special education and related services. They apply expertise in mental health, learning, and behavior to help children and youth succeed academically, socially, behaviorally, and emotionally. They often also provide consultation to classroom teachers for students who have problems with social and emotional issues. School counselors are responsible for all the students in the school. So although they are not providers of specific special education services, they can be valuable resources for students with disabilities. They can also help students deal with social and emotional issues and provide resources for those students who need access to such basic provisions as clothing and food. Speech-language pathologists worked with students who have issues related to communication. They are health professionals who identify, diagnose, and treat communication and swallowing disorders across the lifespan. Occupational therapists work with students who have problems with fine motor control. Fine motor control helps students with such things such as grasping, writing, cutting, and using buttons, among other activities. Audiologists help diagnose problems related to the ear and specifically to hearing. They help determine if a student would benefit from a hearing aid or other amplification devices. Paraprofessionals work under the direction of a teacher or an administrator to provide direct services for students with disabilities. They can have different titles, including classroom aide, teaching assistant, or one-on-one assistant, and they have widely different roles from class to class and building to building. Outside professionals are not employed directly by the district, but many states rely on them to help meet the needs of students with disabilities. Some of these professionals include clinical social workers and behavioral specialists. Parents' roles and rights. Parents of students with disabilities have more rights regarding education than parents of students without disabilities because students with disabilities are historically a protected class. So these are the parents' right under IDEA. 1. The right to request testing. Parents have the right to request that their child be tested and considered for special education. 2. The right to give approval for testing. When a school district would like to evaluate a student for a special education, the process cannot move forward without the express written consent of the parents. 3. The right to bring information to the evaluation and IEP teams for consideration. Parents have the right to present any information they feel is pertinent to consideration for eligibility or development of their child's IEP. The team is obliged to consider this information. 4. The right to request an independent educational evaluation or IEE. If the parents disagree with the evaluation completed by the school district, they can request an independent evaluation from a professional not affiliated with the district. 5. The right to have independent educational evaluation results considered. Parents can ask that the results from the IEE be considered as part of their child's educational programming and placement. 6. The right to request an evaluation in a native or preferred language. Parents can request their child be tested in their native or preferred language and that the evaluation be conducted with the assistance of an interpreter or technology support to accommodate physical disability. 7. The right to be interviewed as a part of the assessment. Parents have the right to have their ideas about their child's progress or lack thereof included in the evaluation report generated by the district. 8. The right to be informed of their rights. School districts are expected to provide parents with copies of procedural safeguards to assist the parents in making an informed decision about their rights under IDEA. 9. The right to be a team member for the evaluation. Parents have the right to participate as team members when their child is being considered for eligibility for special education and related services. 10. The right to be a part of the IEP team. If a student is found eligible for special education, parents may be part of the team determining programming and placement for the students. 11. The right to bring others. Parents have the right to bring others to an evaluation or IEP meeting who have knowledge about the student or the disability, including an outside specialist, an advocate, or an attorney. 12. The right to incur no cost. Special education and related services are to be provided to the student at no cost to the student's parents. 13. The right to access due process or mediation. Parents have the right to call for a due process hearing or mediation if there is a dispute regarding the identification, education, or placement of the student with a disability. 14. The right to file complaints with the state. Parents can file a complaint against the district with the state education agency. 15. The right to receive notifications in writing. Parents must receive notifications in writing whenever the school district proposes a change in placement or is seeking to commence additional assessments to determine programming and eligibility. 16. The right to receive regular reports. Parents can expect to receive regular progress reports on their child at the same rate as parents of students without disabilities. 17. The right to access records. Parents can access their child's records and request a change if the records contains incorrect information. 18. The right to request explanation of information. Parents can request that the district explain reports, records, and documentation kept about their child. And lastly, number 19, the right to obtain copies. Parents can ask for and obtain copies of reports, records, and other documentation kept about their child. There may be documents that parents do not have the right to obtain. A building or district administrator can provide further clarification. To ensure that parents and educators have the knowledge and skills necessary to form effective teams on behalf of students with disabilities, districts can provide a number of supports. These are the recommended district supports for school staff and parents. Provide learning opportunities for educators to meet their basic obligations to work effectively with families and for families to meet their basic parenting obligations. Ensure systematic two-way communication about the school programs, and students' progress. Provide learning opportunities for educators and families to work together so that both can fulfill a wide range of support and resource roles for students and the school. Provide educators and families with the skills to access community and support services that strengthen school programs, family practices, and students' learning and development. Prepare educators and families to actively participate in school decision-making and exercise their leadership and advocacy skills. Provide educators and families with strategies and techniques for connecting learning at school with learning activities the students can do at home and in the community. So what parents need to know? So these are the things that parents need to know about their child. First, grades, both good and bad. Behaviors, both good and bad. Problems with academic. Problem with peers and other social difficulties. Problems with transportation, such as on the bus to and from school. Schedule changes and need for assistance. Withdrawal from special education programs. Along with the right to give consent for their student to participate in special education programs, parents have the right to revoke that consent at any time. They may do so even after a student has been placed into special education and things seem as though they are going well. This means a parent may remove a child from special education at any time. FERPA, or the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974, is a federal law protecting the privacy of student education records. FERPA gives parents certain rights with respect to their students' education records. These rights transfer to the student when he or she reaches the age of 18 or attends school beyond the high school level. Here are the main points articulated in FERPA. Parents of students up to the age 18 have the right to inspect and review the student's school records unless their rights have been terminated under state law. School district employees can also access a student's education records when doing so is necessary for their job. School districts are required to keep a record of all people, other than school district employees, who access a student's school record. Parents have the right to receive one free copy of their students' records. Parents may request in writing that the school district change the students' school records if they believe them to be inaccurate, misleading, or in violation of the privacy or other rights of the student. Once a student turns 18, parents have the right of access to their students' educational records only if they have the student's written consent. ESSA and how it relates to IDEA. IDEA and the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 are the two most important federal laws related to the education of students in the United States. ESSA and IDEA work together to ensure students with disabilities have the following: performance assessment based on the same standards as their general education peers, supports to help them succeed, and assessment to help track their progress. This chapter discussed the law as it relates to students with disabilities. It also helped to define what special education is, who receives special education, and the purpose of special education. Listed the professionals in special education and covered in detail the rights of parents. Understanding IDEA and parents' rights relating to special education is important to helping provide appropriate education for students with disabilities.